Locke lay on his back and let the heat scour his body for places to burn. There was no wind, and against his closed eyes the sun blazed red. Now and then some lurking anxiety began to tug at him, but he flicked it away. He was not in Moscow, and that was enough. For a while, he felt his whole body glow amber, and there was a lightness in his chest. How much better he felt here. Around him, people lay prone on loungers. A waitress walked past with soft, brisk steps on the sand. Murmurs of conversation reached him, easing him to sleep. Then, loud and insistent, one side of a phone call. In Russian, of course, it would be. He caught only the odd word, but recognized the tone, commanding, expectant. He opened his eyes and wondered whether he should have another drink. For a moment he stared up into the immaculate sky, bathing in the heat, then raised himself up on an elbow and winced at the pain in his back. His wretched back. Oksana lay next to him, perhaps a yard away, on her front, her tan fresh. Her face was turned to him, but her eyes were shut, and he couldn't tell if she was sleeping. He looked down at himself. His skin was pale. He had been in the sun for 3 days, but it still looked gray. That morning his back had woken him early, and he had left Oksana sleeping while he went for a run, dressing in the bathroom in order not to wake her, his shirt tight about him and his running shoes strange on his feet. Just before dawn, Monte Carlo was cool and calm, framed by a sky lightening at the edges from the darkest blue, and Locke, heavily at first, and then with a sort of arduous fluency, had jogged past the marina along a coastal path that headed away from the rising sun into the west. His back stopped hurting, and he ran on, breathing ever more deeply, cursing the oily air of Moscow and rejoicing in the world emerging from the twilight. And then abruptly the path had stopped, where Monaco simply stops. His breath harsh in his throat, Locke had pulled up and bent over, his hands on his knees, and felt the weight of his body gently rocking as his heart thumped in his chest. He would go again tomorrow and pace it better, perhaps find a longer trail. Now, though, he wanted a drink. He gestured to a waitress to bring him the same again, and after a minute she arrived with a scotch and soda. He sat up and drank. His father's drink. How he would have scorned the crushed ice and the long, dainty glass. Scorned Monaco, come to that. Holidays for him had meant walking in the Harz Mountains or sailing on the Isselmeer, Locke and his sister serving as reluctant crew. Activity was one constant, the other a Primus stove that lived neatly in an aluminum case and burned purple meths stored in old water bottles. On it, Everhart Locke would cook beans and eggs and bacon with tireless enthusiasm, refusing to let Locke's mother work on her holiday. He was a tall, serious man who was always in motion and whose instinct was to make for wilderness where people were few and air was in rich supply. Cities were for work. God, how he would have hated to pay money to sit with the rich in a beach club, where, Locke thought with resentment, he had still needed to slip that ridiculous maitre d' 2 50-euro notes to secure a decent spot near the sea. To lie in the sun all day surrounded by yachts and car showrooms and concrete apartment blocks, to eat only at restaurants, to sit like a prisoner in this tiny, moneyed enclave, trapped between the mountains and the sea. But Locke felt comfortable here. This was his place, a part of his world. Life was easy, manageable, contained. He had first come here nearly 15 years before to meet Maitre Crescenti and form a company for Malin, the first of what must now be hundreds. Crescenti was tiny, barely 5 foot, but like a true Monegasque carried himself with a pride that felt ancient and unassailable. In his office hung 19th-century prints of the palace and portraits of Princes Rainier and Albert, flags on poles lent in every corner. He had impressed on Locke, without really saying it, that by choosing Monaco he would be conferring on his company the glory of a 700-year tradition.